this is on the interface, right? I hope you are all following. Sylvia, is it going well at your end?
Yeah, I got lost at a point, so I'm just observing.
You're observing?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Why? Your computer went off?
No, you see my computer, when I try to, I'm working on it and I'm still watching you. I can't, when I'm adjusting, it gives me a problem.
Okay. So you said.
Yeah, so I'll see then. No, I'm like.
Let's move on. So this is a basic way of trying to create a dynamic content on your document, in your page, okay? And then let's see if we can be able to also create a simple loop. You know, we're looking at loops, right? And so let's erase all this or comment them out. Let me comment them, and then create a function here. So I'll do a function and say this function should get multiple data. Okay, it's a function that will return multiple data and then store it. And this time I don't have to care about if the whole thing will jump out of the function now, because this is actually a file, so I can work with it. When I finish, I save and call it, then it will execute. So now I'm going to do a for loop. So I'll say for let's I equals 0, right? I is less than 10, and then I'll do I plus plus, which will increment or increase I. So that is a for loop. We talked about loops, okay? And this is a practical example of a for loop. Now, so with this particular for loop, we are looping through the values of 0 through 9, because we said it's less than 10, so it will give us from 0 to 9, and immediately it hits that value, it exits that loop. So it gives us a total of 10 items, okay? Then we also want to, let me create just another div with an ID of, let's say, items. So you see, I've just created a div with an ID of items, but there's nothing inside it. And then in here I want to also create outside. So let me create an element outside. So we'll say let my element equals document dot create element. So we can create an element, okay? And then the element we want to create will have tag of that HTML element tag maps, which are options, okay? Tag map of, or tag name, sorry, type of HTML tag name map, okay? And then let's do that. So I'll create a section. That is the tag I'm going to create here. And then in here I'll say, I'll also have to look for this item, okay, which is let items equals document.getElement by ID, and then the ID I want to get is called the items. So one, I don't have section, so I created it using the function of this particular document object. So I said document.creates this particular element, and I'm creating an element called section. Section is an HTML element, so once I define it, it's able to create that section element directly in a JavaScript for me. So this is dynamic, okay? It's not something I hard coded myself. Like, let's say I come here and then I say now sections, then I say I need 5 or 10 sections, then it will create it like this for me. I'm not typing it there myself. Automatically JavaScript will do that. So we call it dynamic. It's dynamic, it's not static, right? And then what I want to do is that it should pick that particular element. So here I'll do items dot append child. Okay, I'm appending a child, and when I hover my mouse, it's a method which accepts a node element. So I'll do this, and then I'll append that particular element to it. So let me do this here. So it means I would append my element to it, okay? And then my element, let me just do this simple. So I'll say my element dot inner text should be equal to, do a backtick and say item dash. So it will always be item dash, and then I'll do my call my variable in there and pass the item ID to it. So it will be item 1, item 2, item 3, and then when it's done, it will pass the item as a child element into the div that we have targeted here, okay? So when I save, nothing will happen because it's a function, and a function must be called before it executes anything. Now we also have it in this end. So let me create a CSS, a little CSS here. So I'm not doing a lot. As we go further, we'll create it as an external CSS and do more stuff with it. So I'll target the dot container first of all. Okay, we will not care so much about resetting the margins yet because this is not a fully fledged design. So dot container will have a margin of, let's say, 40 px all around, so the thing does not hit the edges. And then also all the elements inside the items ID. So it means when I pick the ID items, okay, here, it will contain some direct sections inside, right? They should have a padding. All the direct distance should have a padding of, let's say, 5 ps by 10 ps left and right. It should also have a border. It should have a border of 1 px solid, and then it should have a red border. Also, I want it to have a margin of, let's say, 4 px top and 0 left and right, top and bottom left and right, okay? So that is the features I want to give it. And then also give it a background color of, let's say, beige, a beige color. So I have defined this, but you can see nothing is showing here because we have not yet called the function. So now let's call the function. So we say get multi-data, and then when I save, look at what's happened. Oh, we're getting only the last item. What just happened here? We are getting only the last item. So let's debug and see why we got the last item and not all the items from 0 to that. So first of all, when we call the function, it calls this here and say this dot so we have the items object dot append. So let's see dot append. So we append to, and then this is method. So let's call the dot append and see. It's also a method. So it also gives us the last one. So let I equals 0, I is less than 10, I plus plus, and then we pass this in. My element, which is this element, dot inner test becomes this. Okay, so what I will do is that I will rather do this here. At any point, it should create a new element. Let my element equals document dot create element of this. My element dot inner test equals that, and then items dot append. Okay, so it's not allowing me to do it from global, but then when I place it in here, at every instance, it means that it creates only one instance of the element, and then because the numbers are changing inside, it's changing this. But when I do it like this, at every life cycle, like any life cycle it goes through, it creates a new instance of the element object and then append, and then move on and recreate another one and append. So it does that. So you can see it's doing it from 0 to 9, which gives us a total of 10 items. So if I need only 5 items, when I put 5 here and I save, you see I get only 5. Okay, if you want to start from 1 instead of 0, then I can do if that initial value is 1 and then the final value is 6, then it will give me a total of 5 items because I said less than. But I can also say less or equal, right? If I say less or equal, then it means it will be equal to the value which will give us 6 items. So this is how the for loops work, and you can see this is what I meant by you can use the JavaScript we have created to actually pull information from a database. This is just a practical example, but we are just doing a dummy one here. So we are able to pull some data, a dynamic data, and display that particular data in here, right? Good. We are also actually executing it directly from here, but then we can also create an input and use that input to call this function. So for instance, on my interface here, I can create an element called input of type submit. The value is